You've heard my story. Now, I want to hear yours.
Is that enough?
Now, before I get into this story, I want to introduce you to today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by HelloFresh. HelloFresh is a food subscription-based service that delivers fresh ingredients to your doorstep, okay? They have a variety of meals to choose from, and they send you all the fresh ingredients to create these meals, as well as recipe cards with step-by-step instructions so you can't mess it up. Now, I don't know about you, but me personally, I never know what to cook. I never know what to buy when I go grocery shopping in terms of ingredients because I never know what I want. Dinner is probably the biggest struggle for me. So HelloFresh is a massive help because they have so many meals to choose from, and I'm never eating the same thing twice. I don't think I've ever had the same thing twice as long as I've been using HelloFresh. I personally go for 3 meals a week. That's what works for me, and it really helps on them days when I just ain't got a clue. You do really get a good value for your money with a lot of their meals starting from £3.15 per serving. Now, I don't know about you, but I am a takeaway queen, and I'm telling you, you're not getting no meal for £3.15. So it helps save money too. There's also no commitment. You can pause, cancel your deliveries anytime you want, or even change the address temporarily of where you want your boxes to go. So you don't have to feel like you're tied in to a long contract. It's very flexible. Use my code Dainá60 or scan the QR code on screen to get 60% off your first box and then 25% off your next 8 boxes. So yeah, I'm busting you lot on some nice savings. Massive thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into some thanks. This first story is titled DJ from My Nightmares. Hey Dainá, I love your story times. Here's my nightmare from a few years back. Enjoy, because I sure didn't. So our journey started in 2018 when I worked at a summer camp in Canada. I was 20 and he was 18. About a month into camp, the guy, we'll call him Sid, transferred to our camp from another camp due to having tobacco and alcohol around the campers. First red flag, I ignored. I thought he was pretty cool and we would chat sometimes and hang out. Over time, we were joined at the hip and started sharing parts of our lives with each other that we never shared with anyone else. He competed in a staff talent show. Not the staff talent show. He competed in a staff talent show by singing a song he wrote while playing guitar. His voice was amazing and the lyrics were great. I was smitten. By the time the first couple weeks were over, we very obviously liked each other, but we were both too nervous to make a move past close friends. One day I was walking to dinner from the girls' staff dorm and I saw him chatting up another staff member, a pretty girl from Spain. I felt jealous immediately, but didn't show it or say anything because it wasn't my place. At the end of the camp season, the staff needed to vote on staff awards. Best dancer, funniest, prettiest, etc. This sounds like a fun camp. I want to go to this camp. You guys are having talent shows and awards. This sounds fun. I was curious to see who he'd vote for as the prettiest, since it was very obvious we were into each other. He voted for some random girl that was a part of the staff, and I was hurt by it. He said, "She's the one who reminds me the most of my ex." Ooh. Burn. She was small and blonde, and I am tall and brunette. Obviously not his type. Nah, sir, because when it comes to men, I don't even really think men have types, you know. Anyone can get it. Anyone can get it when it comes to man. Fast forward to the last 2 days of camp, we never left each other's sides and even slept in the same bed together. Still, nothing happened. When I was about to get on the plane to leave, he handed me a letter and told me not to read it until I was on the plane. When I got on the plane and read the letter, my jaw was on the floor. He had confessed his love to me and described how his feelings grew for me over the past 2.5 months of getting to know each other. When I got back to the States to start my last year of college, we decided the distance was too much for a relationship at our ages. Mind you, his home was in South London. Not a South London, man! No, girl, run for... Okay, do you know what? I haven't even finished the story. No. I wish I would have known you back then, because I would have told you, South London man, run away, run away, run away, run away. Him writing the letter was cute though, I'm not gonna lie, I almost got sucked in because I love a good love story, but then I remembered this probably might end bad, so snap out of it. Fast forward a couple months and we were both still very platonic and not flirtatious. I entered into a serious relationship with someone from my college, and we talked every so often here and there. He also dated and slept around a bit since it was his first year in uni. He told me funny stories about his hookups, and I will admit a tiny little part of me was always jealous. He never had any serious relationships as far as I knew. This is important later. My birthday rolls around and he does something that changed the trajectory of our friendship indefinitely. Since he was a musician, he decided to write a song about me and post it on his Spotify. You can imagine how my new boyfriend, we'll call him Joe, felt about this. I was flattered by the song. Wait, what? Did you tell Joe that the song was about you? Why would you tell Joe that the song's about you? Girl, are you trying to make Joe jealous? What's this? Not the man that you've been, eyeing for however long. You're now trying to, make your boyfriend jealous by him. I was flattered by the song, but I did vocalize how it was crossing the boundary between friends and lovers. Sid didn't care, and it made me really uncomfortable because I really liked Joe and I could see a future with him. I couldn't really see any kind of future with Sid because he lived so far away and there were some of those initial red flags that I talked about earlier in Canada. So why did you tell Joe that Sid wrote a song about you if you really like Joe and things were going good with you and Joe? Let me get into it. Months and months go on and Joe and I's relationship is getting really serious and we started talking about moving in together. Our relationship wasn't the most healthy and we would fight sometimes. He was a huge alcoholic. Oh no! And had a temper. Ooh, no, don't like where this is going, don't like it. So moving in with him made me a little nervous. Yeah, no, there's no moving in, babe. There's no moving in. He's an alcoholic and has a temper. There's no moving in. There's no moving in. I hope he didn't move in. Also, in the back of my mind, I knew that if I moved in with him, he would probably propose and we'd get married. So this was a huge step. Something in the back of my mind wouldn't let me forget about Sid. He was so much like me. He had a soft personality, loved the arts, and the banter was always there. I realised if I got married to Joe, I would have regrets about not ever trying to pursue anything with Sid. So I broke up with Joe. This ended up being one of the biggest mistakes of my life. No, let's not say that now. I don't think it's one of the biggest mistakes of your life. Maybe in terms of Sid, but not in terms of Joe. Child, both of them can get gone because alcoholic with a temper. Nah, yeah. You dodged a bullet there. After I broke up with Joe, I took some time to recover and finished out my time in college. I graduated and I was looking for jobs. I also started talking to Sid a lot more since I didn't have to keep a strict friendship boundary with him anymore. Eventually, I told him that the reason I broke up with Joe is that I couldn't live with myself unless I pursued a relationship with him. Whoo! I told him that his letter and the friendship to me over the past year made me realize I did, in fact, love him. You loved him. He began crying and told me he's loved me since he first spoke to me in Canada. Oh my God. This is sounding like such a sweet love story. What did he do? What happened? That very next day, I used all my graduation money and even worked a shitty custodial job to afford to plan a trip to visit him in the UK. A couple months go by and we are basically boyfriend and girlfriend without the title. Since he wanted to wait to ask me in person. Oh. I was too fast. He almost had me there. My best friend at the time, who was also my roommate, helped me pick out outfits and lingerie to make me feel confident and beautiful for this trip. After I bought the plane tickets, I also began having an eating disorder because I wanted to make sure, since I wasn't blonde like his ex, that I was at least skinny enough for him. I went from 150 pounds to 130 pounds in 2 months. I also dyed my hair a reddish brown colour. I changed a lot about myself, even though he never insinuated that I needed to. Finally, the day comes that I need to drive to the airport and fly to the UK. When I arrived at Heathrow Airport, I ran to the bathroom and gave myself a sink shower, changed clothes, etc. I was so nervous because I hadn't seen this guy in about a year. Seeing him when I came out those doors made my heart stop. I thought he was so damn handsome. We hugged and cried and headed to our Airbnb I had rented since he lived with his parents in the summer. I wanted us to have a little more privacy on our first night, if you know what I mean. I know what you mean! When we got there, we talked and talked. It was like we had never been apart. but something was a little different. We were both obviously nervous because we knew our feelings for each other now. I went with him to the studio so he could practice DJing, since he had a couple sets that I was going to attend while he was there. It was getting really late, so we headed back to our Airbnb, and no one was on the streets. We held hands and ran down the cobblestone streets, singing songs, laughing hysterically. I had never been in love this deep in my life. On the balcony of our Airbnb, we had our first kiss, which turned into a makeout, which turned into sex. It was honestly some of the worst sex of my life. See, I'm all cheesing, I'm getting excited, thinking this is so cute. You lot skipping on the cobblestone, like come on, and then you're gonna go and tell me that it was the worst sex in your life. Why? Some of the worst sex of my life. We were so nervous, and it kind of felt like he was squishing me. I felt so squished, I went and threw up in the toilet afterwards. But luckily he didn't hear, and I never told him. We tried again later, and it was much better. We fell asleep in each other's arms, talking about anything and everything. I was so happy. In the morning, I took a picture of our balcony view for my Instagram story before he woke up and noticed something strange. Someone had immediately viewed my story that I'd never seen before, but the username seemed a little familiar. I clicked on her profile, and when I tell you this girl was the most chav bitch I've ever seen in my life, I'm not lying. Well, you know about chav bitch. You're from Canada, right? Well, you know about the chavs them. Nessa. Not it's giving Jeremy Kyle. I'm not lying. I noticed that they were following each other too. I looked at some of her pictures and I realised where I'd seen her. A couple months before I broke up with Joe, I had noticed her and Sid bantering back and forth in each other's Instagram comments. I didn't think anything of it then, but now I thought it was weird how she was viewing my story without following me. When he woke up, I asked him in the most casual and calm way ever, "Who is this girl?" He said, "Oh, she's just a good friend from uni. She has parties at her flat every now and then and I DJ." I figured they had hooked up in the past and she was being jealous and weird, so I brushed it off. I mean, obviously, he chose me, so no biggie. My time in the UK with Sid was magical. He took me to meet his family, we stayed at his parents' flat in his room, toured around Kew in London, went to his family's beach house in Suffolk. He asked me to be his girlfriend. We gave each other matching stick and pokes. We went to his set where he did amazing. We had a break. We snuck away to go make out. We were inseparable. He shared more stories about his ex and how they had dated for 2 years and how she broke his heart. His family adored me. Even his dog adored me. We really got to know everything about each other. I cried the whole plane ride home because we didn't know when we'd be able to see each other again since we were both so broke. I returned to the US and everything is fine. We talk all the time on FaceTime despite the 8-hour time difference. I told my best friend roommate about the random girl that was still viewing my IG story obsessively, and she said, "Girl, you need to press him about that. That seems fishy to me. I'm with friend. Press him about that. Why is she preying?" I would have blocked her too. Or I would have even like, "Hello, can I help? Hi. You don't follow me, but you're first to view all my stories. You're looking for something?" So one day I did. I asked him about her again, and he told me that they had in fact been in a relationship while I was dating Joe. I couldn't believe he hid that from me. He knew about Joe. Why didn't he tell me he had a whole ass girlfriend? I thought we were closer than that. This tore me up. I didn't speak to him for a couple days. Finally, I forgave him. Another mistake. Fast forward another month and I moved back to my hometown out of state. I remember I was house sitting my grandma and grandpa's place and I was feeling really self-conscious and bad about the IG girl still. So I said something about it and asked when they had broken up, and he said it was mid-June. We confessed our love to each other. I had planned the trip and bought plane tickets, and we were basically dating by early June. So I flipped the fuck out. I said, "When did you last fuck her?" He fucked her 3 days after I'd bought the plane tickets to come see him. Are you joking? Yes, we weren't exclusive technically. No. Bundle that we weren't exclusive technically because you had booked a flight to come see him. You lot had confessed love. You lot were, you said you were coming to see him. Yeah? It don't matter if he didn't ask you to be his girlfriend until you came to the UK. No. He knew what it was. You know what it was. Like, come on now. But as you know, we basically were. He just wanted to officially ask me in person. Exactly. I feel you. I feel you. I'm right there with you. Yes, I'm definitely right there with you. I thought back to one of the days after we had planned the trip and remembered that there were about 10 hours that I didn't hear from him. But I didn't think anything of it because he told me he had a late set. and was feeling sick after, so he slept for a long time. So he's even lying, talking about he's sick and got long sets. I trusted him, so I had completely forgotten about it. Turns out he was fucking his chav bitch all night long raw. Not raw chav sex. I hung up the FaceTime call and threw up in my grandma's toilet a bunch, sobbing my brains out. He kept blowing up my phone over and over. Later that night, I finally picked up and this man hits me with, "I don't understand this reaction because I told you this weeks, months ago." Come again? He claimed that when he initially told me about he and this girl's relationship, he told me that they had still been together and fucking after I planned the trip. I said, "Sid, I would have remembered that." He kept denying over and over. Side note, now after months of therapy, I now realise that he was gaslighting me like a motherfucker. I didn't know what gaslighting was in 2019. He blames my poor memory on alcohol, which I rarely consumed, and my antidepressants. And as you may predict, I eventually believed him. Prick. About 90%. There was a small part of me that knew he was playing with my mind. This made me question my sanity and memory for the duration of our relationship. But we'll get to that. What a sick man. How you just gonna make up a whole flipping scenario that never happened? I told him the only way I could trust him was if he were to give me all his socials. Dainá, I know you know how this story ends. Oh, I know how this story ends too well. Too well. You found some things in them socials, don't? He denies, but I remember something. When I was in the UK, he needed to log into his email on my laptop. He told me his password so I could type everything for him. I remembered this password because it was catchy and funny. So I did what I do best. I logged into his Snapchat, Instagram, email, Facebook, you name it. I start with the IG DMs. This fucking man, after he dropped me off at the airport in Canada with his 2-page long love letter, he was on Tinder an hour later trying to get his dick wet. An hour later. On top of that, he was still talking to the chav bitch from uni. On top of that, he tried to meet up with the ex the day after I left the UK to ask to be his official girlfriend. He was talking to all kinds of girls on Snapchat, Facebook, etc. He even tried hiring a prostitute after I left the UK over IG. A prostitute on IG, Sid. And told her he could only pay her hitting chat. Man's broke. Can't even afford pussy and is still trying to get pussy and offering hash as payment. Anyway, I shouldn't be surprised from time you keep saying that this girl's a chav. I shouldn't even be, that's the caliber of women, yeah? That's the caliber of women he's able to get. I'm assuming this prostitute must have been a chav too. Well, what prostitute is accepting hash as payment? It's got to be the chav ones. Told her he could only pay her in hash. Is it crack? It must be crack. Like, I'm so confused. She obviously didn't even waste her time. Well, good on her. I guess this one weren't a chav prostitute. She was a classy hoe. Okay. What a fucking joker. Clown rat. Not clown rat. I spent all my money on this trip and cleaned people's shit off toilets and pulled hair out of drains for this man. For what? So instead of blocking his number forever, as I should have, I stayed with him. This man had an explanation for everything. First, he pulled the "I'm so in love with you and you're so perfect, I didn't know how to act." He told me that he hit up a lot of those girls to talk about me and ask for advice on how to treat me well. He told me he wanted to talk to some of them about being featured in songs that he wrote about me as a female vocalist. If I could go back and end the relationship here, I would have. It would have saved me so much time, energy, money on therapy. To this day, I feel like he took advantage of my trusting soul and depression, anxiety. Definitely, 100% he did. To make things better, he spends all his money to buy a trip to come down to the US to see me over the Christmas break. Oh, he's got money now, has he? He's not paying for flights of hash. From the lie all the way to Christmas break, we are fighting almost every day and it only gets worse and worse. He threatens to off himself on a daily and FaceTimes me telling me he's on his way to a bridge so he can jump off of it and kill himself. You should have told him to do it. Go on then, on your bike. He obviously was lying about that because he's still alive to this day, unfortunately. I I can't get over the fact that he hurt me so badly and lied, and it manifests into jealousy, anger, sadness, and even worse, depression and anxiety between us. We don't fight fair, and we say nasty, horrible shit to each other. Our relationship would never get better, but I had hoped that it would. Christmas break rolls around and we get a glimpse at how tumultuous we are for each other. One moment we are back to where we were before the lies, the next moment we are screaming at each other. I realise I can't touch him without thinking about him raw dogging that chav bitch, trying to hire a sex worker and trying to hang out with his ex. As the relationship progresses, I'm at the point where I'm blocking him about 1 to 5 times a week due to arguing. He is saying awful shit to me on a daily. I came to find out that the girl that was his ex, that he dated for 2 years before me, actually was never his girlfriend. Turns out I was his first girlfriend ever. When things get bad, he makes a song or an album that ends up reeling me back in. We made the wise decision to plan a trip to Paris and Barcelona for the following summer. One thing about them men, yeah, who make music, they really use that as their they use that, because I'm not gonna lie, I eat that shit up too. I've had people write songs about me before, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a different kind of feeling. Like, it's just like, ooh, like you really put them lyrics together, thinking about me. You got on the mic, recorded that, mixed it, mastered it, exported it, the beat and all of that, all of that. You just sitting there like making songs about me. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it hits different. Telling you, the music men are dangerous. Then March 2020 rolls around. The borders begin to close and we freak out. Oh yeah, COVID. The borders begin to close and we freak out. He drops everything and gets on a plane to come be with me before the pandemic gets ugly. He arrives in my town just as quarantine begins, and we are now stuck in a 2-bedroom condo together. Yeah. Not good. I am laid off as a substitute teacher and he is getting COVID relief from the UK. This is where shit gets bad. Not only are we still fighting every day, which leads to love bombing and makeup sex, our cycle for the past 8 months or so, but now things are getting physically violent. I want to start by saying he never laid a hand on me, which he should thank himself for every day, because if he did, it would be a completely different story. He did push me once, but we'll get to that. First, I want to say that he was not giving me any financial help while staying with me, despite his weekly checks from the UK government. He wasn't even helping me with cooking or cleaning either. AKA, he was a man-child. Big surprise. This put me in a massive credit card debt for over a year afterwards. Too many similarities. There's too many similarities here. Motherfucking right, I'm triggered. Our fighting got so bad, he would run away in the late hours of the night. He destroyed my books. He threw me to the ground once. He scared my cat on multiple occasions. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Not the cat though. The cat is just like, now why am I in this? Like, meow, motherfucker. Once we were fighting so badly in a parking lot in my car that someone called the cops on us. When the cops separated us for questioning, the male cop asked if he had ever hit me. I said no, which was true. The cops let us go and told us to chill the fuck out and take time away from each other, which is hard during quarantine. Once I cut my wrists and hit my head so hard on my steering wheel out of frustration, I had a goose egg and still have the scars now, covered by tattoos. This man put me in the most toxic, animalistic place of my entire life. Our neighbours came over once to ask us to quiet down. Heavy on the animalistic, like the way these men can bring out something in you you never even really knew you could possess. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's dangerous, man. It's dangerous. And this is how you hear them stories about when the woman snaps and murders the man. Because these men will legit drive you insane. Finally, the flood happened. This is the turning point and where our relationship was finally going to come to an end. One night, we were having a good night. We were playing hide and seek, goofing around, and I hid under the sink. My hip hit a pipe under the sink and one of the pipes burst. By the time the fire department got there, my top floor apartment was completely flooded and ruined. We were forced to stay with my parents in the next town over while it was being repaired. This is where things got even worse because we didn't fight quietly. My parents were worried at first, but after a few days, my mum and dad had a private discussion with me and told me that I needed to end things with Sid and send his ass back home. that part. I'm surprised your dad didn't go up in there and thump him down. I refused, saying that they didn't understand us and things would get better. One time we were fighting so loud and Sid was saying horrible ass shit to me like, at least Liv, chav bitch, wasn't a fucking psychopath whore like you. My brother burst into the room and got up in his face. Yeah, come through, brother. Got up in his face and I thought he was gonna snap his ass like a toothpick. Finally, my parents asked him to go for a walk and pleaded with me to send his ass back to the UK. I again refused. Your parents are good, boy, because they would have just dashed the man out of the house. You think that's their ass about send him back, please send him back. No, he's coming out. I don't business if you lot say that you're going to be together and want to be together. This man is coming out my yard. Come out my house now, yeah? Come out my house. He would have been dashed out already. You wouldn't have had no option or no trace. My father said, if he doesn't get on that plane, I'm contacting immigration and getting his ass deported. Period, pops. Our last night together was miserable. We cried the whole time. We hadn't had sex in weeks and I wasn't planning to that night, so we didn't. We just cried and I tried to distract him by putting on a show so we wouldn't fight. The next morning, we got his stuff, got packed up and I took him to the airport. I don't even remember if I kissed him goodbye, but something in me knew it was the last time I was ever going to see him. After he returned, he called me up and we made a game plan for fixing our relationship. I told him we both needed to go to therapy and set some boundaries. One of the boundaries I set was that if we started fighting, we had to hang up the phone and call back in 30 minutes after we had both cooled down to talk about it civilly. I started getting therapy immediately, virtually. And my therapist made me realize that I had been manipulated and gaslit for years by him. She gave me some healthy argument tips. We created more boundaries and she validated me. I called him about this therapy appointment only to find out he hadn't even contacted or looked into therapy because there was nothing wrong with him. I was disappointed to say the least. Mother's Day rolls around and I'm out with my family. I'm speaking to my mum about therapy and my mental health journey. I had started going for walks and bike rides outside to try and get to know myself again. We somehow got on the topic of marriage and she ended up telling me that my dad hated him so much that he would not walk me down the aisle if we ended up getting married. I knew at that exact moment I'd have to end the relationship. My dad has never hated any of my previous boyfriends, so for him to make a statement that drastic pulled me out of my stupor. Yeah, I'm glad. But that's nice though, because that shows you have a really good relationship with your dad and you respect him enough to just, yeah. Later that night I called Sid and I asked him how was his search going for a therapist. He still hadn't even tried to get in contact with one. After a few more sessions with my therapist I'd been speaking with, she told me she thought he had an undiagnosed borderline personality disorder. So you can see why me pushing him towards therapy was so important to me. Anyways, during this phone call with Sid, after he told me about refusing to go to therapy again, I pressed further. This led to an argument where I ended up enforcing the 30-minute to cool down boundary I had set with him earlier. He agreed. I turned my phone off and set an oven timer for 30 minutes. When I turned my phone back on, he had called me about 100 times and blown up my messages. He obviously was not interested in healing our relationship at this point. I knew it was time. I called him. He picked up screaming. I remained silent until he stopped and said, Sid, please, please go to therapy. I'm sorry. I love you. I hung up the phone, blocked his number and never looked back. Yes. I'm sorry, that one needs a clap. Because there's no back and forth, hun. There's no back and forth. There's no negotiations. There's no let me hear your side and let me say my side. No, it's a straight block, wash my hands. Me done tell you off it door. You didn't do it. So that's it. Goodbye. Let's keep this energy. Yeah? Moving forward. Always. Soon as someone, when it's done, this is the energy. When you're done, there's no talking. Yeah, there's no talking. When I'm done, I'm done. Goodbye. I deleted all of our pictures from social media, from my phone, everything. After about the second week of no contact, his best friend messaged me on IG saying that Sid wanted to know if I'd be open into reaching out again. Oh my God. No, why is it so similar? Because why have I had similar things with man's friend? No, I'm sorry, this is too familiar, because why have I had similar things happen with man's friend contacting me, telling me, please, talk to... Nah! Don't get your friends to contact me. Don't get your friends to contact me. I don't want to talk to your friends. I don't like you or your friends, but friends. Sid wants to know if I'd be open to reaching out again, and I said the following. I'm never talking to him again in my entire life. if I can help it. If he's lonely, I'm sure he can just hit up Liv again or find another Tinder bitch to stick himself into. But thanks for the message, smiley face. His friend left me on red, but I'm sure the message came through loud and clear. Months later, my spam in my email was filled with threats, hateful and horrible messages from Sid. I moved to a town in the middle of nowhere and got a job there. I just wanted to start over. He somehow figured out where I was working and emailed my boss, attempting to blackmail me. I filed a police report against him and the sheriff gave him a phone call threatening to issue a restraining order if it persisted. About every 6 months, I'll still get an email from Sid, ranging from anger to desperation. I continued going to therapy, and because of that, I've been in a happy, healthy, long-term relationship for over 2 years. I'm the happiest I've ever been, knowing how miserable he is with his life. He's tried everything to get in contact with me. He even tried adding me on LinkedIn. This man's nuts. This is how I found out that he flunked out of uni and now works at some shitty restaurant in Bristol as a busboy. I then blocked him there as well. He came out with a retaliation album that I never... Man made a diss album? What the hell? I never bothered to listen to it. My best friend listened to it and said it's just bad songwriting. He hasn't come out with any music since. Knowing how much he fails at life brings me joy. I know I did the right thing by cutting him off. I haven't spoken to him since April 2020. I look back on that relationship with embarrassment and I can now live my life in peace. He doesn't know where I live or work now. I'm finally free. If you happen to read all of this, thank you. Your channel and shit you experienced with your ex-husband reminds me of what I went through with Sid. It makes me feel comfort knowing that I'm not the only victim of men like this. They are everywhere. They are. Sharks in the water, right? Much love, Dainá. Keep on making content and art. Thank you so much for this story, because honestly, it's stories like this that, like you said at the end of that one there, make you realise actually you're not alone. And there's people going through things like this all the time. You went through it, girl. You went through it. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so happy that you ended it. Once you put your foot down, you put your foot down and there was no looking back. I love that for you. I absolutely love that for you. I wish you the best of luck and we ain't manifesting no more Sids. That story was pretty long on its own, so I think I'm just going to do the one story for this video. If you guys want to send me a story, make sure you send it to this email address on screen. I'll also leave it in the description box. These stories are starting to get worse. These men are being exposed. I'm sorry. Keep them coming, honestly. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in my next one.
Is that enough?